There was once, that's really loud. There was once a girl, she was, at the start of the story, she was 12-ish. Her name is Amanda Todd, it's a true story. And like any other 12-year-old girl, she likes to sing, and she liked to go online and make videos of herself and send selfies, and she had friends, and she'd hang out and be goofy with her friends, and like most teenagers, she had a social media account. Now, this was like 10 years ago, so that's when Facebook was big. Nowadays, kids, they think Facebook is for old people. But back then, it was Facebook. And she was on Facebook, and like many 12-year-old girls, if someone tried to Facebook friend request her, if they were friends with someone she was friends with, she's like, oh, they must be legit, and she would accept them. And so she would, like I said, she would post videos of herself singing. Here's a picture of her, she's a cute little girl, and this guy friend requested her and she thought he was a teenage boy, probably thought he was cute based on his pictures, and he started asking her for more pictures of herself, and he started asking her to give him a show, asking her to post nude pictures of herself, and she's like, or send him pictures, and she said no, and she said no, and for a year, he continually asked her to send him pictures and to give him a show. Finally, she relented. She was probably 7th, 8th grade at this point. She relented and sent him a little video of her kind of dancing and whatever without a shirt on. Well, he took that video, and he took pictures from it, and then he asked her to send him more and more, and she's like, no, I sent you one, leave me alone now. And he just kept saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to make your nude photo my Facebook profile picture. And she said, no, I'm not going to do it, and that's exactly what he did. And he had added all of her friends as his friends also. And so then he made her nude picture his Facebook profile picture. And of course, then she got really bullied at school because everyone was calling her, you can imagine the names they were calling her. And it got so bad that she had to move schools. So she changed schools, and she didn't have a Facebook account for a while. She stayed off of social media for a while, and then finally she felt safe enough to get back on social media, and she created a new account with new friends from her new school, and eventually that guy found her again. He did the same thing to her again. He added all her friends as his friends, and he tried to blackmail her for more pictures, and when she wouldn't do it, he posted her nude picture, his profile picture again. And again, she got bullied so bad that she had to move school. She drank bleach. She tried to kill herself. She was unsuccessful in her first attempt. And then she moved schools again. This time she moved to Canada. She was originally from the United States. She moved to Canada. She got off social media. Things were getting better. She finally felt safe enough that she could get on social media again, and she did. He found her again. Same thing again. This time he started posting lies about her because she would not give him more of a show. He friend requested other girls at her school and told those girls that she was messing around with their boyfriends, and these girls found her and beat her up and left her in a ditch. And then finally she released this video. It's really sad. It's just music, and it's her. She's like, if you really knew me, and it's all these cards telling her story. I was going to show it, but I have a lot to say today, so that would have made it really long. So Amanda Todd, if you want to go online and find her story, it's very sad. Ultimately, she hanged herself, and she was successful in taking her life. And it breaks my heart because so many kids get bullied and they don't know what to do about it. And parents don't know what to do about it. And no parent wants that to happen to their child. And so fortunately, when it comes to being bullied online, cyberbullying, because of stories like Amanda's, governments have started to pass laws to help stop that. So if a minor is being bullied online, there are some legal things that can be done. But if it's an adult who's being bullied, there's really not, unless they cause you physical harm, there's not a lot that can be done. And so it breaks my heart to see this happen, but bullies have been around forever. I mean, those of us, I asked Claire if she'd been bullied, and she said yes. And if we think back to when we were kids, I'm sure many of us can remember a time someone tried to bully us. I remember, this was not my script, but I'm going to tell you the story because it's kind of funny. This boy on my bus, I always got on first, and I would save a seat for my best friend. He came up one day, he's like, let me sit with you. And I said, no, I'm saving the seat for my best friend. And he had like his football equipment, like his pads and stuff, his helmet. He's like, he shoves me over. He's like, move over, I'm sitting with you. And I was upset. I went home like, Mom, this boy's bullying me. He's being mean to me. My mom's like, you go home and you go back the next day and you tell him if he messes with you again, your dad's gonna beat the shit out of him. And I did, and he never messed with me again because he knew my dad. But I was fortunate. You know, I'm from a small town, and my dad is, especially when he was younger, super strong and kind of intimidating. You know, the Boy Scouts ran their tree farm, and all the boys in my class were afraid of my dad. They called him Rando because his name is Randy. And so, like, I didn't have to deal with bullying because they were too afraid of my dad to mess with me. But not everybody has that. And so bullies have been around forever. I mean, even Jesus was bullied. You know, we look at the Bible, I often ask myself, like, what does the Bible have to say about this? And even in the Bible, Jesus was bullied. The bullies in Jesus' day, the people who bullied Jesus, I should say, they were called the Pharisees. And the Pharisees were the religious scholars. They were the guys who spent their whole lives studying the Torah. They were super smart. They were highly esteemed. They got the best seats wherever they went. They were like well thought of. And then Jesus comes on the scene. And suddenly here's this guy who didn't go to school, who hasn't studied his whole life, and he's showing them up. Because he speaks so intelligently about God, and they didn't like that. And so they would continually, if they'd find out Jesus was in a place, they would come to that place and they would try to get him in trouble. They would try to trick him. They would try to catch him in something that they could you're wrong, and discredit him. And they were constantly doing that kind of stuff so they could bring him down because they were threatened by him. And let's be real, bullies usually, they are insecure, and that's how they act, or they're just jerks. Some people are just jerks. You know, there's a power trip. They want to be on top. And so these Pharisees wanted to be on top. And so they were constantly trying to take Jesus down. And there's a story, I love this story. In Matthew 22, Jesus is hanging out in a town, and he's shown up, and he's going to be teaching. Well, the Pharisees are like, oh, that guy, we're going to take that guy down. And so it says, after the Pharisees heard, basically, that Jesus was in town and speaking smartly and doing miracles, they thought about what they could do. And they wanted to ask Jesus difficult questions. They wanted to make him say something wrong about the Roman ruler. So I talked in communion, so we've got the Jewish people, and then we've got Roman rule. And so they were under Roman rule, and you did not mess with Roman rule. And so they're like, well, we can't take him down because that'll look really bad on us. But if we can get him in trouble with Rome, then Rome will take him down for us. That was their ploy. And so they're like, we know, we'll trick him into saying that he doesn't bow down to Caesar and that he won't pay taxes to Caesar, and then with the Romans will take him down and we can wash our hands of this guy. And so the Pharisees sent their own disciples. So the Pharisees had, just like Jesus had disciples, the Pharisees had their own disciples, their students. And they sent people who were friends of King Herod. So we're going to go find some influential Romans. We're going to take them with us. We're going to trap him. And then they're going to hear it, and they're going to go tell Herod, and Herod's going to take care of this for us. So they said to Jesus, "Teacher, we know that you only say true things. You teach us what God wants us to do, and it doesn't matter to you what other people think. If something is important, you don't change your answer to make them happy." So they're setting him up here. They're saying, we know that you always tell the truth, and you don't care if it goes against, basically, you don't care if it goes against Rome. You're not going to lie to play politics. So they're trying to set him up. And then they say, so tell us this. Should we pay taxes to the Roman ruler Caesar? Is it right to give him that money or not? Because this was a huge point of contention. The Jewish people were being taxed to starvation. And so they were hoping Jesus would say, if you trust God, you don't have to, if God is your king, then you don't have to listen to Caesar. That's what they were hoping he would say, and then the Roman people would take care of him. But Jesus outsmarted him. Jesus knew that these men wanted to do bad things to him. So he knew they were trying to take him down. He said to them, "You're asking the questions that cause trouble for me. You are not being honest." He's like, "I see what you're doing. You're trying to get me in trouble. You're trying to trap me." He's like, "I know what you're up to. You're not sly." He says, "Now show me that coin that you used for the tax." And they brought him a coin. And he asked them, "Whose picture is on the coin? Whose name is on it?" And they said, "It's Caesar's picture. It's Caesar's name." He's like, "All right, then. Give to Caesar the things that belong to Caesar. And then give to God the things that belong to God." I love that he outsmarts them. He's like, "Oh, you're trying to take me down? No, I'm smarter than you are." He stands up to them. He doesn't lie. He doesn't say anything that would get him in trouble with Rome. He just says, "Fine, that money belongs to Caesar. Give it to him." And they were so mad that in another, I don't think it's the Matthew version, another one, so they went back and trying to find ways to kill him because they're just so mad. He often did this to them. He would stick it to them, and then they'd be like, "Oh, we gotta get rid of this guy." And they would conspire how they could work together to take him down. So they were bullies. They repeatedly came after Jesus, trying to do him harm, and they would try to gang up on him. And those are the three hallmarks of bullying. As a teacher, kids will come up to me like, someone was mean to me, they're bullying me. And I'm like, they're not really, they're just being a jerk. Because bullying, true bullying, has three facets. Intent to cause harm, like they're actually trying to hurt you. Uh-oh. I think my mic just died. I'll just talk loud. It's repeated, so it happens often. And there's an imbalance of power. So if one kid is mean to you every day, that's not bullying. If one person is mean to you every day, that's not bullying. Where it becomes bullying is when they get all their friends to gang up on you, or they get all their friends to ostracize you, or they're repeatedly trying to hurt you, and there's an imbalance of power. It can also be like a person in authority. So we're talking about bullying. Some of you might be like, "Stephanie, I don't have kids right now, in school, so I don't have to listen to this." But we can be bullied at work. You can be bullied in your family. You can be bullied in my family. There was a time when my mom's like, I have to give in to the demands of my sister-in-law because otherwise she won't let me see my kids anymore. There's an imbalance of power there. So you can be bullied as an adult. Don't be thinking that you can't. We can be bullied wherever we are. Bullies don't graduate from high school and suddenly become nice people. They're still bullies as adults. And so today I want to give us some practical things that we can do to handle bullying, whether it's teaching our kids how to do these things or whether it's us doing them for ourselves. And I wrote my whole thing, and it was kind of long. I was like, man, this is long. And I was like, oh, it'd be cool if I could come up with an acronym. Well, turns out there was an acronym. And then I rewrote my whole speech. I rewrote it and used this acronym, and it made it shorter. So that's nice. So the acronym is to stand. Stand up to bullies. And the S of stand stands for standing tall. And we see Jesus do this. Jesus, he didn't cower. He didn't oh man, you guys are so smart, I'm so sorry. He just stood up to them. He says, no, I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to cower before you. I'm going to stand tall. And standing tall means, one, standing up for what you believe and being your true self. It also means not reciprocating. A lot of people, and I hear kids say this all the time, well, he's running his mouth about me. My daddy said that if someone's giving me a hard time, I am allowed to punch him. No. As Christian people, we are New Testament people. Some people, I've heard some Christians be like, well, God said an eye for an eye. Well, okay, then Jesus is there we go. You've heard said an eye for an eye. So Old Testament people, God said an eye for an eye. Jesus is like, yeah, okay, that's the old way. We're New Testament people. In the New Testament, he says it's no longer an eye for an eye. I say to you, don't resist the one who's evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn the other also. And if anyone would sue you for your tunic, let him have your cloak too. And if anyone forces you to go a mile, go with him 2 miles. Jesus is saying, you know what? We are going to be people of grace. People of grace stand up for themselves. I'm not telling you to be a doormat. But also, don't retaliate, and don't teach your kids to retaliate. That drives me nuts when I hear a kid say, my mom said that if anyone gives me a hard time, I'm allowed to fight back. I'm like, well, fighting back means they fight you first. Not they make you mad and you punch them. I mean, think about if that's the way you learn to deal with conflict you get in the working world. Most of us are still working in here. If someone's mean to me at work, I can't punch them. My principal comes and he's a jerk to me, I can't slap him, or if another teacher. So we've got to teach our kids how to stand tall and not retaliate. Even Paul, who is a disciple of Christ, said, my beloved, never avenge themselves. Never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. Because he says, vengeance is mine, and I will repay, says the Lord. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. And if he is thirsty, give him something to drink. For by doing so, you will heap burning coals on his head. You guys might have heard, and you might have told your kids this, kill them with kindness. When someone's being a jerk, just smile and wave and be nice right back to them. But when you retaliate, you're taking care of it yourself, and God's like, all right, we already took care of it. I have a better way. Jesus never retaliated. Jesus never came back at the Pharisees and asked them he did ask them hard questions, but he never tried to get them in trouble with Rome. He didn't retaliate. When he was being tried, falsely accused of being a rabble-rouser, he didn't fight back even then. Jesus had the power to call down lightning and smite people. He had that power to do that, and he didn't use that power. He instead gave grace to those. Even the people who were in the act of murdering, he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. They were in the act of killing him, and he said, I forgive you. That's who we're supposed to be as New Testament people. All right, and the T is tell someone. Now with kids, this is like Claire said she did this, right? Tell someone. With kids, we need to tell a teacher, tell your parent, and we need to really listen to that. When your kid comes and says they're being bullied, we really need to listen and not go mama bear and just go attacking other people. I've had kids tell me they go home and tell their mom that someone's giving them a hard time, and then their mom goes and fights the other mom, and I'm like, what? I don't even understand that. But that's just the mentality sometimes. It's like, oh, you hurt my kid, I'm going to hurt you. I mean, the telling someone is so that you have someone to talk to, and maybe your kids will come and then you can talk them through, how do we handle this situation? And as a teacher, this is my little caveat. Yes, you should listen to your kids, but also we should ask good questions, because I'm going to tell you, the parents who go on social media, my kid's getting bullied, and those kids are terrible, and I'm like, I see your kid in school. They poke the bear. They're a jerk. They push people's buttons. So, there are some people who are just jerks. And also, sometimes they're provoked. So ask those good questions with your kids, and even of yourself. If someone's being a jerk to you, ask yourself, why do you think they're acting that way? Are they going through something? Have I done something to cause them to have that reaction? But tell someone and document. I tell kids this all the time. And those of us, especially if you're being bullied at work or in a way that's illegal, document. I tell the kids, write down who said what, when, where. Because when a kid comes to me and says, Johnny's being mean to me, I need to know where and when so that I can go to the people. And I've had kids in the classrooms come up and say, Johnny's saying these comments. If you say what class that happened and where, I can go ask other kids who were sitting around Johnny, hey, did you hear anybody in class yesterday say something like this? And then they'll tell me, then I can get a second opinion on it, right? So have your kids document where and when. Have yourself, if it's happening at work. My dad was bullied at work at the Ford plant. He had a foreman who was making him go against OSHA rules, making him work in unsafe conditions. And so my dad documented what happened and then went above that guy's head and got that guy in trouble, you know what I mean? Because that guy was being a bully to him. So we got to tell somebody. And the next one is to avoid. Sometimes we can avoid, and even Claire said that. She said her teacher just moved her seats. I've done that. If a kid's giving another kid a hard time, I'll just move their seat. Or sometimes in the class, we'll be Why don't you go to class this way instead of that way? Because that's the way where the kids are who give you a hard time. Sometimes it is, even Jesus did this. Jesus sometimes just avoided the situation. He was like, I'm not even going to deal with that fight. There was a time he was supposed to go to Jerusalem, and he's like, I know those Pharisees are going to be there, and they're just going to give me a hard time, and I'm just going to not go. Or there's these people in this town, and they're going to give me a hard time. Let's just go around. We'll just go around and go to a different place. There's no harm in, if you can, avoiding it and trying to stay away from it. Like, there's a great movie called Cyberbully about this girl who gets cyberbullied. And she goes to like a group, and they're like, just block the people who are bullying you. And she's like, I never even thought about that. So if someone is bullying you, see if you can avoid them in some way. And the N is say no. I think about Amanda Todd, the little girl at the beginning I was talking about. If she had stayed strong and said no to that guy and never given him a show, he would not have had the material he needed to blackmail her. When I think of bullies, I think of like the big guy who's shaking you down for your lunch money. You know, like when I was a kid, that's what I thought bullies were. I thought they're people who shook you down for your lunch money. But if you continue to say no to them and you stand up to them and you're like, I'm not going to do that. Like a friend of mine, her brother is kind of a bully in her family, and he makes things miserable. And she's like, I'm not playing your game. I'm just not going to come at Christmas then. I won't be there when you're there. It's fine. Or you have these demands. I'm not meeting. I'm not doing it. Sometimes we need to teach our kids to say no to them. And we need to, in our workplace, say no. Maybe in our family, we need to say no, I'm not doing that. If my dad had said no to that foreman, then the foreman tried to write him up, and my dad would be like, well, did he tell you what he told me to do? Like, we can say no to their demands when their demands are to cause harm. And the last one is develop friendships. If you want to stand up to bullies, develop friendships and teach our kids to develop friendships. A lot of the kids I see get bullied a lot, the ones who I see get bullied the most are the ones who don't have a strong friend base. Because no one's coming after you if you've got a strong friend base. Because there's safety in numbers. And Jesus knew this. Jesus traveled with his disciples, not only the 12, but he had a bunch of people who traveled with him. Did you notice that the Pharisees not only brought their disciples, but they got Roman people. They got a whole crowd of people. They knew that the only way to take Jesus down was to outnumber his disciples, outnumber his followers. Because there's safety in numbers. So if we develop friendships with people around us, then we've got people to say, hey, you can't say that to her. Hey, you can't do that. Hey, that's not cool, man. You know, like I think about Amanda, if that guy had posted those pictures and if all of her friends had rallied around her and said, Amanda's not that kind of person. When people were calling her names on social media and telling her she's a terrible person, if all of her friends had commented and said, she's a good person, I know her, this guy is lying, then maybe she wouldn't have felt so terrible and had to move schools. We need to develop strong friendships. And then we also this is not part of the acronym, we need to learn to be good bystanders. At school, we have a program called Green Dot, and Green Dot teaches kids to be brave bystanders. A brave bystander is someone who, when they see, because it's easy to think like, because they show this in movies, even if you never saw it, like two kids are getting ready to fight, and what happens? A circle of people forms around them. And nowadays, they get their phones out. Okay? So if we teach kids to be brave bystanders, if that fight is about to brew and everybody leaves and no one is standing there to watch it, a lot of times that fight will fizzle out. Because the bully is doing that so that they can look powerful to everyone else. So if you've got people standing around and be like, dude, back off. Dude, what are you thinking? I don't know why you're doing this. You're being ridiculous. You're being childish. If we can be brave bystanders when we're not the one being bullied, we can help shut down those bullies. And so we can stand up to bullies just like Jesus did, using the STAND acronym. We need to teach our kids, those of us who have kids and grandkids, we should be teaching our kids to stand up to bullies and to not retaliate and to be brave bystanders. That is the New Testament way. The Old Testament way was eye for an eye. The New Testament way is to stand tall. to stand up to bullies like Jesus did. We have that power through God. Through our faith in him, he can give us the strength that we need to do that. And so if you want to grow in your faith, I've got one more. This goes with the developing friendships. It says, though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. This is why we have friendships. A cord of three is not quickly broken. So your dare this week, I dare you to get closer to God. I dare you to be a person of integrity who can stand up to bullies. The first one is those of us who have kids and grandkids. Talk to them about bullying. Ask them if there are situations in school or sports where they feel unsafe. Ask them if they see other kids being bullied. What do we do about it? Let's train our kids what to do. Maybe have fake situations that you run them through and have them practice. If you're not a parent, are there bullies in your life? Are there bullies in your family? Are there bullies at your work? How can you stand up to those bullies? Be thinking ahead of time before a situation happens. How can I handle a situation where I'm being bullied at work, or bullied in my family, or bullied in my neighborhood? You could ask God for strength and wisdom to support your child and give your child these tools. You can read Ephesians 4:29. It talks about how to speak kindly even in hard situations. And finally, be a brave bystander. And teach our kids and our grandkids to be brave bystanders. Have either you or have them, imagine what would that look like? How can we stand up for them? Teach our kids, teach our young people how we can stand up to bullies and be brave bystanders. Because it is never God's intention for us to be bullied. But there are bullies out there. And just like Jesus faced them, we have the tools to face them as well when we stand up to them. And all of God's children said,